Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special edition of Let's Take a Stab at It. I'm your host, John Hoyer, and with me is...
Jason Barch. Merry Christmas, John.
Merry Christmas, Jason. We figured since everyone loved, well, we think, people seem to have liked the Halloween special, so we figured let's, to tide people over to the next miniseries, we would have a little Christmas special for everyone. We could bask in the holiday spirit, right?
Yeah, I would say people were pleasantly surprised with our Halloween special.
Pleasantly surprised. Well, your game show idea was a hit. Everyone told me they liked it.
Yeah,
so.
No, it was a lot of fun, and we have gotten a good response from it. So we appreciate everybody out there who's listening, and we're excited to keep this train moving.
So for the listeners, as a special treat, we have a little present for them.
Hello.
No, not you, Trevor.
Oh, okay.
We have a different special treat. Trevor's here, everyone.
What's up, Trevor?
Hi, guys. What's going on? Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Trevor. But quiet now. We're still setting things up. So
you're old news, Trevor.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
so over.
when it's your third time on, you're no longer a special guest. You're just a guest.
Whatever.
I think it's probably like fourth.
Is it fourth?
Yeah, it's fourth.
Time's really flying.
Yeah. All right. But anyway. So, Jason, why don't you tell us what the special present is for the listeners?
Yeah, thanks, John. So, in a Let's Take a Stab at It first, we are going to do our first ever interview, which is exciting. So,
yes, a
little bit later in the episode, we're going to be talking to my good buddy Dylan Stern-Courney, who was the director of photography on an indie film. It's a horror drama film that's also a Christmas movie. It's called I'm Dreaming of a White Doomsday. And we're going to have a little chat with him a little later in the episode. So looking forward to it.
And if anyone is interested, you can watch that movie right now on Amazon Prime.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd recommend it. So before we do that, let's talk about some holiday traditions we have for like the Christmas time. It's a very contentious debate here. Real or fake tree? Go.
Okay. I don't know if I'm going to help solve any debates, especially this year. So a little context, a little backstory. People like backstories. My wife is allergic to real trees, but I love going to pick out a real tree. That's one of my favorite Christmas traditions. You go to the tree farm. They give you this big stick with the ribbon on it. When you find it, you wave it in the air, and then they come down, they cut it down. It's great. I love it.
What?
So she's allergic, and she's never been able to experience that. This is our first Christmas in our new house. So we decided we were going to get a real tree for the front porch, keep outside. And then we got an artificial tree for inside. So we went and we had the whole experience of cutting it down, and, now it's outside, so it doesn't bother her allergies. But we did go with the artificial inside, and I will say they've gotten much better over the years. I know at Lowe's and Home Depot, they actually have like a little chart on the tags, of like a gauge of realness, basically. It's kind of like, I think they call the ones that look artificial traditional, and then it's like real and realist or something. But we went with one, and it looks really nice. It looks real. It's got kind of the more realistic looking branches in the front, and then kind of in the back with the filler, it's like the more kind of fake looking stuff. But we hung these things called sensicles in the tree that smell like pine. So we have tricked a few people into thinking it was real. So, and they are not a sponsor of the show. Sensicles, if you're out there listening and you want to throw some money our way or some free product, that's fine.
Wow. Okay.
Use the code STAB and you get 20% off.
So I'm almost afraid to ask, but where do you guys fall on the real versus artificial?
We maybe had real ones when I was very little, but my family, as they've gotten older, they do not put in the effort for Christmas like they used to. So we have a fake one that my mom bought at Lowe's for it was the display model that they were selling after Christmas. And she bought it and she's like, oh, we're going to use that next year. And that was maybe like 10 years ago. It's very sad looking, but
does it look artificial, or is it one that tries to look real?
There's no way it would ever be anyone would ever think that it's a real tree. It's on its own. It looks very sad and should probably be put out of its misery.
I don't know why I picture you guys like not even taking the decorations off and like draping a blanket over it or something.
Well, one time, so I should. My parents will hate. They don't listen. We had people over in February, and instead of taking it down, we did kind of cover it for the people to come over, so like they can be like aware, like, oh, it's still up, but like we have some shame about it, you know. So that's what we did. Trevor, you haven't weighed in yet. So are you a artificial man or a real man?
So like when I was little, we used to buy real trees. They were kind of easy to get because where I lived, it was like in the mountains, so it was really easy to get a good, solid real tree. But then we got a cat, and the cat kind of developed the tendency to piss on the real tree. And I don't think Sensical has a cat piss smell.
Yeah,
so,
no, I don't even think their high strength scents will cut through that.
Right, exactly. So we decided let's get a fake tree and all that stuff. And I've been a fake tree owner since. Dee and I, my fiance, we just got our own house too. We got a tree. It's a 9-foot tree. It's pretty nice.
9 feet. Wow.
Yeah. We got a lot.
Is it real or is it artificial?
It's artificial. It's
okay.
We got a lot of ceiling room, and we don't have we're building up our Christmas ornaments and stuff that. So yeah.
So all right, Trevor, when do you put up the tree usually?
We put up the tree after Black Friday, so like that Saturday or that Sunday we usually put it up.
Okay. Jason, when do you?
Yeah. I mean, I think traditionally Black Friday is a really big day especially if you're buying a real tree. There are often a lot of families out that day looking for them. This year we were a little earlier. We were, I think, a week before Thanksgiving because we were trying to get, since it's our first Christmas in this house, we're trying to get all the, decorations.
Yeah,
Jason, we get it. You're a homeowner. We got it.
I don't want people to wonder why I'm just now getting all this
cool.
Christmas
He's
stuff.
got his own house.
He's like,
I do notice that there was a lot more people decorating for like Halloween and Christmas this year. Obviously because of, COVID, they're probably just like, let's just get into the spirit of things.
Yeah, I think this year everybody was just kind of
we
really
need to change things,
ready to get into a change of scenery. So I think it might have been a little earlier, but yeah, I'd say after Thanksgiving, it's fair game. John, how about you?
We usually put the tree up around December 22nd, 23rd. One time we did it on the Christmas Eve.
So this has been a very really sad start to this episode.
Merry Christmas.
So while we're on this topic, how do you guys feel about Christmas music? Like, are you a fan of it? And when is it a good time to start that? When is too early? When's the right time?
I feel like it's whenever it's playing, it's too early. I think it should be a couple of days before you put on like the Home Alone soundtrack, and that's it. Any of the songs that play on Home Alone, that's good. Not much more than that. And then no Christmas music after Christmas.
I think you get till New Year's.
I don't care. No.
I think you get till New Year's.
There's like a 4-day window at most where you play Christmas music, and then that's it.
That's strict. I can't say I'm surprised with your take, but
because it's for me, it's it's very triggering. Like I hear Christmas music and we don't have the tree up yet. It's like I'm being
stressful.
Insulted.
Yeah, it's like they're rushing you. You're like, we're not ready to celebrate yet.
Tick tock, tick tock.
All right. Well, Trevor, what about you?
Well, I'm kind of like in the same boat as you. Like I used to work you, John. I used to work retail, so it's kind of triggering to me because I'm like, usually like they'll ramp it up like towards before Thanksgiving, they'll start playing Christmas music in the store, and it'd be triggering. I would get Vietnam flashbacks if I hear it now. Like I just imagine I'm making Nam and stuff, but I think you
hear a loud noise and you go to grab your pricing gun.
Exactly. When I hear Mariah Carey start belting out, I'm like, what? Where? No, but I have to say, probably like December. December Christmas music, nothing early. I know that they start playing it on Black Friday, but I can't win.
Trevor, you're talking about a couple days difference. I mean, it's like a huge difference. Like,
I don't know. I think it's just way too early.
Well, he's being generous, I think, with early December, because I've heard a lot of similar horror stories of people who work in retail, and that's always their reason for not liking Christmas music, because I have to hear it so much. I happen to love Christmas music. Bring it on.
Of course.
Growing up, I would make a Christmas mix CD every year with all these I would find all these indie Christmas songs and put them on a playlist. It was called Chris Mix. You can find them on Spotify.
Holly Jolly Jason over here.
I think we're at volume 10 or something. So I think the problem with Christmas music is there's so many cool songs from, so many years, and there's so many cool covers and different versions of songs. I think the problem is we hear the same versions. I think it's fair game for sure after Thanksgiving. People get upset hearing it before Thanksgiving because they're like, let's get Thanksgiving done first, and then we'll think about
exactly.
it. But I have a retort for that, because I consider Christmas music as encompassing all of those holidays, like Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's. It's all the holiday season.
No.
There's no Thanksgiving music.
That's fine.
Okay, it'd be different if there was Thanksgiving music and Christmas music was taking the place of that. But it's not a thing.
Thanksgiving means you are thankful for what you have, and by pushing through the nice part of Thanksgiving that's less commercial, and being hey, let's bring all the commercial Christmas shit before that. I feel like you're losing sight of that solemn time where you don't have to deal with Christmas nonsense. You're encroaching, Jason.
Yeah, and it's actually even starting to poke its ass in Halloween now. It's
that's not okay. That's not. I draw the line at Halloween.
You start putting Christmas music before Thanksgiving, you've made an enemy, my friend.
It gets me pumped up for Thanksgiving.
Can I get hyped?
Okay. So Christmas music, Jason listens to Christmas music all year round. The rest of us hate it.
I have it on right now, my headphones. So.
Have a holly jolly. He's like, John's more bearable if I listen to Christmas music. Well, okay. Let's go with a couple other things here. Regifting. Have you done it, or have you caught someone doing it to you? Thoughts?
I don't think I've ever caught someone doing it. Have I ever regifted? I don't think a big gift, possibly a white elephant type gift. If you ever did those,
I feel
exchanges.
that's usually, if you're okay, I'm going to work. If I want to be a part of this white elephant thing, and I don't have to be working,
and there's still something in the package from last year.
Yeah,
and you grab it.
I almost did it one year at my old job, where I still had the present that I got from the white elephant the previous year in my in my drawer, and I was debating if I would put it back in the next year. Maybe I'll get something better. Everyone that sat around me discouraged that, so I didn't do it. Especially because they're like, well, the person who gave it to you probably still works here, and I go, I want them to know.
Yeah, I don't really have a problem with regifting. If the reason behind it is maybe you get a gift from somebody that you don't really like, or even something that you already have, and it's something they're really excited to give you, I think there's merit to just, putting on a happy face and thanking them and moving on, even if you don't intend to use that particular item. So as long as there's no way they ever find out you regifted it, I think, giving them that moment, because I don't know, if it's a sincere thought and a gift that they really thought you would like, let them have that moment. Regift it later.
I do have a specific regifting story. It wasn't to me, but a certain relative. I don't want to mention who in case he listens to this, but so my mom received a very nice, expensive looking nightgown one Christmas, and she's like, wow, he has never given me anything this nice before. This is very surprising. A few months later, my sister was looking at like some like home movies or something, and we figured out my mom actually bought that nightgown for my grandmother in like the late 90s, just before my grandmother passed away. So she never wore the nightgown.
Wow.
So the relative held on to that for like 10, 20 years.
Jesus.
And then gave it to my mom, and my mom's like found out about it, and she called him out, and he like, that's not true.
He denied it.
He denied it.
That's like next level regifting. If you're gifting back to the person that originally gifted it.
And another example, and this will be it with this.
How many stories do you have?
30 plus years. All right. So, okay, last bit. He at one point gave out a Christmas card to my sister, and the Christmas card was in pencil. And then at the end of like the Christmas day, we couldn't find the card, Christmas card. He took it back.
No, and erased it.
Oh my God.
Trevor, what about you? Regifting.
I never really like truly like regifted. I only regifted once. It was somebody gave me a board game like in a white elephant. I'm not sure if it was like an office thing or it was like some small family thing, but they gave me a board game, and then I regifted it to another white elephant because like I don't know, nowadays I don't understand why people have board games. As long as it's not like Cards Against Humanity, just get rid of it, you know. So I regifted.
You don't like board games?
I mean, I like board games, but like, I mean, the type of it was Heads Up, and like, I'm not gonna break that out when like, hey, everybody, let's play Heads Up. You know, I'd rather play hard Cards Against Humanity. So I just regifted it. Really,
you're too edgy. I got you.
I know. Yep.
I happen to like board games, but I also like Christmas music, so I know you guys don't care what I think.
Nerd.
I mean, it's not like it's Jumanji or anything, so whatever.
Okay, so favorite Christmas memory or present? Something that occurred, or maybe a present we got when we were younger that is just very memorable for us. Jason.
I would say I got a bike when I was a youngster, and a bike was always kind of like a big thing. That was like a rite of passage for a little kid. I remember like my parents called my sisters downstairs first, and I mean, there's really so many ways you can wrap a bike. So they saw it first, and I heard their reactions, and I remembered like how excited I was, like ready to run down the steps, and like I mean, I'd asked for a bike, so yeah, and it was cool, and it was like this big kind of, they got like a big sort of drape. It's kind of sounds like what you guys put over your Christmas tree, and I, you know, like pulled it off and had a bike. So I was pretty pumped about that.
All right, Trevor, what about you?
For like Christmas present, I would say probably when I was like really, really young. This was before my sister was born. I remember my parents pretty much going all out for me. And like when I was a kid, Ninja Turtles and Ghostbusters were big for the toys. So my mom and dad, I would like to say they bought the entire line of Ninja Turtles and Ghostbusters toys. Like I got decked out. Like I had the Ninja Turtle blimp, I had their van, I had the Ghostbuster firehouse, I had all the different iterations of Ghostbusters, like all this Egon has slime on it, and this Egon does this, you know, like, and you know, I pretty much went all out. And then Christmas got ruined when my sister was born, so I got less gifts.
Well, that's a interesting way to end that. Yeah, for me, my parents they always did a lot. I think I was in like 4th grade, and my parents got me a Polaroid camera. And all of a sudden I became like the photographer for my family at like events. So I take these Polaroid shots of them. And then another year I got like the night before Christmas, we do like one gift we could unwrap or whatever. And I unwrapped the Godfather trilogy. So I was probably way younger than I should have been. And Jason will mock me about that.
You were 10.
Yeah. It was on DVD, so it had to have been within the last 20 years. But I got that, And I remember like staying up real late watching the first one.
Yeah, that's always cool when you get a gift. Now that you talk about that, I think about like certain CDs I got because like CDs were a big thing.
Oh,
and like
yeah.
now, like to this day, when I hear them, they still remind me of Christmas time and like happy times, even though they're not Christmas CDs or Christmas music. I didn't ever ask for a Christmas music CD, just so you guys are aware. But yeah. But yeah, you saying the open one gift on Christmas Eve, my family did that for a little while. I know when I was younger, I don't know what was like the big thing I asked for that year. You know how there was always like one kind of one big gift. I don't recall what it was. I know I had my heart set on something, and that's what I was hoping to open on Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
And Christmas Eve was on a Saturday this particular year. And I picked one. I think I picked the biggest box. And my mom was like, well, why don't you open this one instead? I was like, okay. I opened it. And it was like an illustrated Bible. And they had me open it so I could take it to church the next day. And I was like,
Jeez.
it was just like, it was killing me.
Oh my
Killing
God.
me that I had to wait. Because like, I wanted the big box.
I'm imagining you in like the end of A Christmas Story when Ralphie's opening up everything that's not the BB gun and he's looking so dissatisfied, and I just imagine you going like, what is this?
And it's hard, like when you're a kid, like you haven't yet fully developed, the appreciation aspect of gifts and like, considering the thought that people put into them and all that fun stuff. So, looking back, I feel like a jerk, but I was just like, I don't know, definitely not thrilled. As a kid, it's even worse too, because then you go back to school or you go hang out with your friends and then you're comparing your gifts to them. And it's tough because you want to be grateful, but then, if there's wealthier families that just got the newest, game system or something, it's just like, as a kid, you don't think about all that. You don't think about the money behind it. You just like, you kind of just automatically get ungrateful and a little kind of pissed off about what you did get.
So it's interesting what you were saying about the like monetary kind of thing about certain kids getting fancier stuff. When you're younger, you don't know that Santa isn't real.
Well,
so then,
what do you mean? What do you mean?
What?
What do you mean Santa's not real? He's real. Why are you laughing?
Is this a bit?
No, this is not a bit. What do you mean? Santa's real. Like,
what are you talking about?
This is Santa's real. He's the one who delivers the gifts.
Trevor, you're 34 years old.
Yeah, and I clearly know that Santa's real. So like, what's so funny about it?
He's not real, man. It's your parents.
What?
Your parents give the gifts and just say it's from Santa.
Can you excuse me, guys, for 1 second?
Okay, Jason, when did you find out that Santa wasn't real?
I don't know exactly the age, but I remember arguing with my cousin as a youngster because this is around the time it just didn't make sense to me anymore. Yeah. And I was trying to use logic, and I was
nerd
like, okay.
Over here.
I was like, okay, explain to me, like, how there can be a Santa at your mall and my mall at the same time. Because that, for starters, that didn't add up. And he just kind of arbitrarily was like, oh, well, the one at my mall's real. Like yours is, someone just, pretending to be. It's like, why is the one at your mall real? Like, why are you so certain about that? And like, we got into like an argument, and I was like frustrated at how adamant he was about his being real. It's not that I wanted my Santa to be real. That wasn't what I was upset about. It was like, it didn't make sense. Like, I don't know. I was no fun.
Okay. Well, okay. So my mom used to give very like weird explanations to everything, but she would give it in this very like kind of off the cuff, like, of course, stupid. She wouldn't call me stupid, but it would be like, I'd be like, well, how is Santa at this mall but not other malls? It's like, none of them are the real Santa. It's like, well, why are they there? And my mom wouldn't even give like the pretend like, oh, he's like a Santa's helper or something. She'd be like, yeah, oh, it's just like the store does it so they can make money. The way my mom got around, like if I asked for very expensive things, like I'm like, oh, I want a computer. And my mom would be like, can't get a computer from Santa. It's like, why not? And it's like, the elves don't make electronics, obviously. They make toys, stupid. Like, like they make toys, and then that's all you get. So you have to ask for toys from Santa, you know? So cut to a few years down the road from hearing that, I was snooping around my grandparents' house and I found like a bag that had like Super Nintendo games for me. Then for Christmas, I received them from Santa. So it was like, I've been lied to my entire life. As seems to be the case with Trevor over here.
It's true. He's not real.
Trevor just did a quick Google search. And
It's okay, guys. I'll just save the existential crisis later. Let's just continue with the podcast.
All right. So what are some movies you watch around Christmas time? You know, people debate whether like Die Hard's a Christmas movie, and I don't care what anyone is saying about that. Like, who cares? Whatever you like to watch around Christmas time, good enough.
Yeah, Die Hard. Obviously the Home Alone 1 and 2.
Classics.
Yeah, Santa Claus. The Santa Claus with Tim Allen. And like kind of lately, it became a trend with me and my friends. We started watching this movie called Santa Sleigh, which is like a Christmas horror / comedy movie where Santa is. It was actually the whole plot of it is Santa is actually Satan's son, and he was planning to kill all the people in the world, but he loses a bet against an angel, so he is punished doing 1,000 years worth of good deeds. So that explains why Santa Claus was delivering toys and all that stuff. And by the time of the movie hits, Santa deals off 1,000 years has passed, so he starts killing people. And I think the best thing about the whole movie is to kind of tickle my tickle the fact that I'm a wrestling fan. Bill Goldberg was the Santa, which is funny because he's also Jewish. So, and like he kills a bunch of people like in pretty comedic ways. Like he sets Fran Drescher on fire, and like he kills a rabbi with a menorah and stuff. It's a funny comedy movie. And
this sounds like a time capsule of like early 2000s, like people that are not really.
I've never even heard.
Well, actually, it's kind of funny because like when I open it all the time, there's like a Godsmack CD next to it, so it's always weird. So,
okay, Jason, are there any like movies maybe you watch around Christmas you like?
Yeah, I mean, the Home Alones, obviously. I'm partial to 1. I mean, 2 is still very good. I just think there's something charming about the first one. The fact that he actually was in his home alone. Because that kind of, you know, as a little kid, that kind of sets your mind wild. Like, what would I do in my house? Yeah. And then in the second one, he's in like a house that's being renovated and it's kind of really spooky. And, you know, you don't get as good of a sense of the space. Yeah. I think. I
think like the mother plot line in the first one is really good, where she's like dedicated because she's going to find her son. And then like she's doing like talking to different people, trying to get rides. Like she gets on that bus with John Candy. And like you can sense how like the desperation and how like whatever. And then at the very end, when like it's very touching when they like meet up again at the first one. Second one, you know, the emotions work generally, but it's like you already did this last year. Like Kevin's all right again.
It'll be fine.
The one thing actually I did appreciate about Home Alone 2 was the fact that Harry and Marv actually knew some of Kevin's tricks. Yeah. So like they expected the paint cans. They expected this. Like when Harry was touching the doorknob, he was afraid he was gonna get burnt because he has that M burnt from the last movie. Yeah. And you know, even when you think about it, like later in the movie, Harry and Marv, like, you know, they know that Kevin's going to do something, so they pull a gun. So they one up him by pulling a goddamn revolver.
They do pull a gun on him.
I have to say though, the best part out of any of the movies is when Kevin's throwing the bricks and they keep hitting Marv. And I always die when he's like laying on the ground.
The Home Alones, they're great. Recently, my wife and I think we're probably about maybe 4 straight years, maybe coming up 5. We've been watching It's a Wonderful Life, which
Great
I think
movie.
Yeah.
you appreciate the older you get, at least I do.
Absolutely.
And I mean, there's still different parts of that movie that, stand out every year watching it. And I don't know. It's great. It's definitely a Christmas classic.
I think it's one of those movies though that like, because it was on a lot when we were like younger, that a lot of people kind of discount as being like some like corny, like old movie.
Gimmicky, kind of like Hallmarky.
And then when you watch it, you're like, oh, like the part where he like goes back to see what the world would be like without him is actually like, like the last like third of the movie or something. There's a whole build up to that and like a lot of good characters and like,
oh no, I still get choked up at the ending. It's just like he's kind of a man who's just so hopeless and like, or just ready to be done with life. And then at the end, when he sees in front of him all the people that he has had an impact on, like in one room, all coming together, it's just like, I don't know. It's really cool.
Let's see, for me, all right, so Die Hard, obviously I mentioned that. Not really a Christmas movie, but has a lot of scenes at Christmas. Goodfellas. It's not really a Christmas movie at all, but I just remember those scenes and I go like, so I watch it around Christmas and I feel vindicated because I know like today it was on, Goodfellas was on TV. So there must be other people who feel this way that has some Christmas themes to it. The importance of family and never ratting on your friends. I mean, so one of the things that we were thinking of like maybe talking about on this podcast for this episode was like picking maybe like a horror movie that's like Christmas related. And obviously the most obvious one would have been Black Christmas, but well, listeners, we can't review Black Christmas now because it's going to be part of our next mini series. Oh, what does that mean?
Say it.
Say it.
Say what it is.
All right. Our next mini series will be slashers. Oh! All right. So we're finalizing the list, but rest assured the classics will be there. If there's a classic slasher film, you're like, oh, are you going to cover that? Probably. So maybe. Unless you're coming up with some weird thing that's not really a classic. Like if you think Friday the 13th is a classic, you're wrong. If you say Halloween, let's say, you're correct. So we'll be announcing soon all the movies, so don't worry. It'll be on like Facebook and Instagram or whatever. So we'll be doing that. And we're actually really excited about this because Jason and I, we've been huge fans of slasher films. We should have some good guests lined up for that, and we're working on that right now. So speaking of guests, we're now going to put Trevor on hold and go to our interview with Dylan Stern-Courney, the director of photography of I'm Dreaming of a White Doomsday.
All right, so we are here with my good buddy Dylan Stern-Courney, who is the director of photography for a little Christmas horror film called I'm Dreaming of a White Doomsday. And we're just going to chat with him a little bit about, the process of making this film and, what this film's all about. And just to kind of start off, we just kind of want to explain a little bit about what a director of photography actually does. Because if you're a casual listener, you might see this in the credits of films and not be totally sure of what it means. Dylan, feel free to chime in if I miss any aspect of, what a director of photography does. But essentially, they're in charge of the look of the film. They coordinate with the director tells them what they want, and then they're responsible for setting up the shot, telling people where to put lights, and just basically capturing the essence of what the director is going for, correct?
Absolutely.
So so Dylan and I, we work at the same company, Ada Media Solutions. We've known each other for about 6 years now. And Dylan is the videographer, director of photography at our company, and I'm the editor. So I get to see a lot of footage that he shoots. And our company, we tend to do a lot of corporate, industrial oriented work. But I know on the side, both of us, we also like to do more creative endeavors. Dylan, you'll do short films, music videos. So you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. I mean, I never liked commercials, and I guess I still don't. I can kind of appreciate them on a psychological level, but throughout I mean, throughout the 12 years, almost 13 years this spring, I've been shooting here. And actually, Derek, the owner and producer, and I were the AV kids back in high school. So we've been working together for 20 years. But I've started to actually really like doing a lot of the commercial shoots. It's kind of like what my opinion became on musicals, which I don't like most of them. But everyone I was in, like on stage, were really fun to be in. So
nice. So yeah, I know we do a lot of corporate stuff, but like I said, we both kind of do a little more, I guess, creative things on the outside, passion projects, if you will. So I guess maybe let's just talk about the importance of balancing kind of corporate work with these passion projects, because in my mind, you can still refine your craft no matter the type of project. And, corporate work can help with the technical aspects, but then passion projects can help with the creative aspects. And you can kind of take from each side. I found that doing passion projects on the side has helped me make corporate projects more creative. And then, constantly working on these corporate projects, I'm refining my editing skills and my shooting skills. And, that can carry over to the passion project.
Yeah, absolutely. Part of the reason I wanted to pursue a career in cinematography, being a director of photography, just being a camera op, which some directors of photography insist on being the camera op. Some like to have a camera op.
Some don't even touch the camera, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So yeah, that's we can add on to the definition of a director of photography, or if you hear us refer to DP, that's simply the abbreviation for it. But yeah, there's some DPs that won't even touch the camera.
Yeah, most that I know personally do like to be hands-on, unless there is like a big Steadicam shot or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the reason that I really wanted to do that was because then I knew I wouldn't be slacking on the practice, slacking on those things that do make you a better cinematographer and DP, the things that make you, I've learned a lot more about lighting. I've learned a lot just on the corporate side of things. Well, sometimes they're rejuvenating. That's the other thing I like about the commercial things. You're generally not working such crazy hours in such horrible conditions, though we did have that one Barnstormers shoot that was like 100 degrees out. So not always the case on corporate gigs.
That was rough.
But yeah, I do think not only does it keep the passion going, I've definitely brought things then back from the films and the music videos that we've used.
Yeah, absolutely.
For the cinematography on our corporate work.
And I don't want to make it sound like our corporate work lacks all creativity. That's not what I'm trying to say. We definitely put a creative spin on things when we can, but then there are certain projects that just don't allow for that. We're doing like a how-to video or, an explainer video or a training video, and it's very matter of fact. And the client will often want it that way. And there's only so much you can do creatively with projects like that. But I definitely enjoy taking things I learned outside of work and applying them, to more creative aspects. And I think it's good to have that balance, And
yeah, I mean, on a lot of our commercials, we do really get to basically make really short films and get to be very creative with the lighting and the shots and actually, not just like, we're filming a talking head at a podium. Just got to get it done.
Absolutely.
With those types of work, you also have to do kind of more of a glossier kind of filmmaking as well, which maybe, if you're doing something like the film we're talking about, that's a little bit more aesthetically is more rough looking, more real, etc. Whereas commercial, you have to make it look, I can't think of another word for it, but like more Hollywood or more, glossy, nice.
Yeah, or even just a lot of times brighter. I mean, I tried to go with a really, both indie yet Hollywood feel for that. Like, I think, what was it? The Revenant came out at that point, and I loved all those really long, steady and gimbal shots. So I tried to put a lot of those. I think there are like some 3 and 5 minute takes in the movie.
So yeah, that's now's a good time as any to kind of set up this film. It's called I'm Dreaming of a White Doomsday. It's available on Amazon Prime, and you guys also have Blu-rays as well, correct?
Yes, on Scream Team Releasing. I'm sure they'll love that shout out. You can order them there. I believe we're still streaming on Amazon.
Yeah, it's on Prime. If you have Prime, you can stream it. So I'm Dreaming of a White Doomsday follows a mother and her 8-year-old son as they struggle to survive in a bomb shelter after an unnamed apocalypse. And so this is classified as a drama horror, and it's also it has to do with Christmas too. We'll get to that a little later. And, just we want to put a spoiler alert out there. We're going to talk about a lot of aspects of this film. So, if you want to check it out before you listen to the rest, I would, advise pausing it here and then coming back to the rest of the interview. But
So if you get spoiled later, that's on you, listeners.
We've made the announcement. From here on, it's up to you.
Thought that was implied, but thank you for making sure, John.
We like to have an adversarial relationship with our listeners.
Yeah.
So that's what I bring.
You don't
to
want to
this.
get any angry emails. I understand. So yeah, this is the second time I've seen this film. Originally, I saw it, I guess when you guys did the Lancaster premiere a few years ago is when I saw it initially. So you want to just talk a little bit about how you got involved with this project?
Yeah, absolutely. I had already been the DP for all the real splatter stuff for like since about 2010, I think. Mike had asked me to come in actually to do an editing thing where I wound up shooting kind of like a film within a film intro to it, but he had all this stuff shot on his old crappy camcorder and couldn't figure out how to piece it together. So I actually came in first as an editor and then wound up DPing that opening sequence to that, which looking back on it recently, I actually was like, wow, I'm still pretty proud of this. It was like a ghost movie spoof.
Nice.
Like ultra meta type thing. And then the movie itself was this thing about like this kind of cannibal movie called Long Pig. But then I did Long Pig. Then we did The Stall. We did this thing that was like a joint project with I forget the name of the other company and Real Splatter. This Brian Keane adaptation called Fast Zombies Suck. That was. And so basically I had worked with them for a while and this was it started as a story Mike wrote.
So just to clarify, Mike is the director of the film, Mike Lombardo, and he is one of the members of Real Splatter. And who else is involved with that?
It's his company.
So it's Mike's company, and then are you considered like a team member of that, or does he work with a lot of people? Is there like a core team to Real Splatter, or is it mostly Mike's thing?
It's mostly Mike's thing. Like
Okay.
There's been the few core people in and out, and I've been basically the core DP throughout that whole period.
Awesome. So did Mike approach you about wanting to do a feature? Was this the first feature for Real Splatter?
Yes, that's what I was going to say. I was like, wait, yeah, I lost my train of thought there. Basically, we had been getting more serious. Like all of his stuff kind of started as backyard camcorder shot, like just horror comedy stuff. So The Stall got a bit more serious while still having those elements. And then he wrote this really dark story that was, by the same name, I'm Dreaming of a White Doomsday. And I think we were basically talking at some point, and I just said, in some ways, I can't take credit. I mean, it's all his thing, but I said, I think we can pull this off. And then we did it. And initially it wasn't supposed to be a feature. It was going to be basically a long short, like maybe 30 to 40 minutes. But then as we were going, since it was one of those ones we shot over a year and a half or a year and 3/4, just weekend warring it. And I don't remember what we wound up going with for the name of the behind the scenes feature on it. But what we had talked about was that time we accidentally made a feature because we weren't really trying to, but then we realized, wait, if we put back some of these scenes we cut, if we do this, at this point we may as well make a feature because we put so much time into this, and shorts are basically just things to kind of drum up funding for features these days.
Did you start Principle of Photography with the intention of this being a longer short film?
Yes.
Okay. Wow.
Because it's not a super long story. I forget how many pages it is, but it's so it basically got expanded for the film then, and kind of throughout production, because Mike was basically going in and rough cutting and figuring out what we had and what we needed as we were going, and that's when we accidentally made a feature.
So is this behind the scenes, Doc? Is that something we can watch, or is that something that's still in the works, or where does that live?
It's on the Blu-ray.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have to pick the Blu-ray. That's one of the downsides of watching it on Amazon Prime.
Yes.
It doesn't have those special features.
Please pick up the Blu-ray from Scream Team Releasing.
Is that screamteamreleasing.com?
Yes, screamteamreleasing.com to make sure we get that in there. That's where the Blu-ray lives, and also where that behind the scenes doc lives.
Awesome. So this film, it's, I guess a good word for it, which I'm sure you've heard before, is bleak. it's definitely bleak. And I know you said Mike had some personal things going on at the time that he was writing and developing the story, correct?
Yes. His mother was in the hospital with some severe illnesses, and essentially he wanted to kind of take that feeling of, I mean, maybe before I say this, I should say she recovered. She's doing great. She was kind of the stepmom. She did catering for a lot of the stuff. Like she, he was came to some of the festivals. She's an invaluable asset on the production. But yeah, basically his whole idea was just the idea of seeing someone that you love just wasting away and fading away and just being powerless and unable to help them. And I think that comes through really well in the film.
Yeah, the film captures that very well. So, just for a little context to those who haven't seen it, it's this mother, Kelly, and her son, Riley, who are in, I guess it would be a basement of a house. Is that where they are? Or some sort of kind of bunker?
It's a bomb shelter.
Type thing.
It was, we shot it in a basement of this house down in Columbia, right off the Susquehanna River, just filled with like hundreds of, maybe 100 to 150 years worth of like river silt. And I even partially just for comfort chose to go with as much LED lighting as I could. And we didn't have great LED lights at the time. So I was like taking daylight balanced ones and orange gelling them to match the
lanterns,
the lantern, but we were actually really burning lanterns down there too. And those things get smoky. And even with the tiny mini indie crews that we had down there, it got hot and the dust got kicked up. And it was like we thought we were really getting black lung from shooting down there. But, basically, yeah, we were going to try to use an old bank door, like something much bigger and clunkier. But the bomb shelter door that you see in there was a practical prop that they built out of foam.
Okay.
And I think an old like Nintendo steering wheel.
Okay.
With
Sadie and I were
caps glued to it to look like rivets and everything.
Sadie and I were talking about that the other night. Actually, we were like, what do you think they used for that door? Because it looks good. And we're like, is that like, it looks like it could almost be from like a bumper car or something like that, that they made look metallic. You guys made great use of that space. So how did you come about securing that location?
We had looked around. I think Mike probably spent a year doing pre-production on this, like, because he wanted it to be unofficially set in the 90s. Like there's nothing in it that you wouldn't have gotten in the 90s. And so not only did he do all the practical effects, he did all the set and prop design. And he spent a while talking to people who had old basements that we could dress to look like a bomb shelter that you see, I mean, throughout the film has all these boxes and things down there, mostly just, they didn't expect the apocalypse. So they just stored all their holiday stuff down there. And
so the space, you touched on the lighting a little bit earlier. So it definitely looks like it's lit with a lot of practicals, a lot of lanterns and candlelight. Was that difficult to achieve, to kind of get that natural look in low light? Because, I know that can be tricky, especially depending on the camera, kind of achieving that low light look.
Yes, it was quite hard. We weren't shooting on a great camera. We didn't have log at the time.
What camera did you shoot on, by the way?
We shot it on 60Ds. Oh. Actually, one of them was our studio's old 60D, and it stopped working, I think, from all the dust that got in it on that. Wow. Like that, I think, is what killed the 60D file. I mean, we'd had it for like 7 years at that point, and now I just wouldn't even imagine wanting to do something like that without having some sort of log or raw.
Yeah.
But it was tricky. We had good lenses, but yeah, there's not a lot of dynamic range on those cameras. So yeah, we shot in low light, but we did have to punch it up with, we couldn't, like I mentioned The Revenant before, and I love how they shot that in all natural lighting and practical lighting, but they shot that on like an Alexa 65 with special lenses that were extra fast, and we had fast lenses, but that wasn't possible. So we did have all these LED panels, and occasionally when we ran out of those, we would use some of the old tungsten Arri light, and I just was really trying not to use those down there because it was already sweltering.
And tungsten lights, for those who don't know, are get very hot. incandescent bulbs. Just to provide a little context, like when we talk about log or dynamic range, like log is a type of picture profile that basically it comes out looking very flat. It doesn't really pop. It's not very vivid or contrasty. And what that does is it actually allows for the camera to capture more dynamic range. And what dynamic range gives you is the ability to have, very dark areas exposed properly as well as very bright areas exposed properly. So that the fact that they didn't have those resources and still were able to achieve the look that they did kind of makes this all the more impressive, because like you said, the camera it doesn't have a lot of dynamic range. So you guys kind of had to work around that. And I thought you guys did a great job with the lighting and, so how much of the lighting was practicals and how much was, filled in with some lighting?
It was pretty much all of the basement stuff we had to use. We had to augment the lighting, but most of the exteriors were just practically lit.
There was one shot that I really liked was the when she leaves the basement and like when the door opens.
That's one of my favorite shots. That was just the sun, but like we shot it a few times and we had like fog and dust kicking up from the basement. Totally different location too. We actually used that location it was this old abandoned like mansion in up in Ephrata. I guess I should say the entire film was shot on location in Lancaster County, but that gave us, I think, 3 or 4, maybe even 5 separate locations. But basically, we made the basement of that place seem like it was the cellar, and then the bomb shelter's the sub cellar to that when she comes out of that door. But yeah, just the sun was hitting at the perfect angle on that flare coming through there.
Then
thank you.
I was like,
that is.
I didn't want to sound like I didn't want to interrupt, but I was like thinking like you shot that on a 60-day.
Well, that was the joke. I don't think we ended up doing it in the credits, but we kind of wanted to like make a shot on red logo, but shot on 60D, just to be like, yeah, we pulled it off like this. Because I've had people like music videos and other things be like, wow, did you shoot this on a red? Nope, 60D,
filled with dirt.
Yeah, well.
So the film has a lot of interesting tracking shots as well that kind of follow the action and these kind of like drawn out shots, which are really nice. So what did you guys use equipment wise for that? Did you have some sort of Steadicam?
Yeah, we had several. I had my Steadicam Merlin. We had I forget whose that was. We had a Glidecam 2000, I think, for some of the exteriors. And then for some of the other exteriors, we also had, I forget what the kind of gimbal was. It was before we had the Ronin at the studio here. So, and that was sort of my first time using gimbals. And I was like, wow, this is so cool. It's such a revolution. But then on some more recent films, seeing people using like the big Steadicams and also having shot with gimbals for so many years now and just how you can't push them like you can a Steadicam. I sort of see why it's like, okay, they do have their use. I mean, now there's the Arri Trident or something. There is basically a Steadicam with a gimbal, but it's a 6-axis gimbal on the end of it. But yeah, we did do, I mean, there's some slider shots as well. And I think we used probably the ATEM dolly at one point as well, but I really wanted to have like I think Mike and I too like some of those more kind of indie shots, like the kind of Wes Anderson, just kind of lockdown sort of stuff. But I also really, especially like having really been impressed by The Revenant, and of course, like the True Detective shot, like some of there was a lot of things at that point where they were doing these really long Steadicam takes. So I really wanted to have that because there are a lot of moments in the movie where just locking you in to that shot and to that action and to that moment really, I thought, makes just makes it more powerful, just makes the poignant emotions, which are, generally quite bleak, that much more powerful. And it doesn't cut away, so you don't look away. And I think that just kind of, like the shot, it's not even a crazy shot. Like it was like 5 steps backwards and then kind of like a jib down, parallax up thing, but where she makes the cookies and runs out of the room and starts sobbing into her hands.
No, that's a great shot.
like that moment.
Yeah. No, that's
I don't remember how long that shot is, but that one, like, you know, it just not cutting away at those points. Like, well, we shot it in ways that we had the options, you know, I think that is the key as a DP that I learned from the beginning. Unless you really have a big crew and you really have this stuff pre-planned, and you just don't have that much time for that when you're shooting a movie this way.
Yeah.
You kind of have to plan for the best, but also have
a backup plan,
have backups.
Yeah, you gotta be flexible when, especially you know, when you guys are working on a time crunch, as most indies usually are, and you know, limited space, and you know, you guys made a great use out of the space, I think, and you guys used a lot of close-ups down there. Was that kind of out of necessity, or was that kind of planned? Because it's a lot of, you know, medium to close-ups down there, and then, you know, we have the kind of the tracking shots, the, you know, the Steadicam shots that we talked about. So I guess, what was that process like in optimizing the space you were shooting in? Because when you work in more of a confined area, like a basement or bomb shelter, you know, you can kind of get stuck sometimes, where it's like, you know, well, where do I put the camera now? Like, and a lot of the film takes place down there. So was that a challenge, I guess, making use of that space?
Oh yes, it's not a tiny space, but it's not huge. It's not like it's a set where you got breakaway walls. It's not like it was not a place where we could, since it was somebody's house, it wasn't a place where we could set up the lights and set up things and kind of have just a setup to come back to every time. It was quite challenging, but I personally really like close-ups. Like, I really like soft depth of field, and also just I really like racks. Like, I really like working with the Z-axis, whether you're physically moving the camera or racking from something to another thing. Like, I like that kind of movement, and so some of that was partially my choice. Some of it was that it was a small space. We had, you know, somewhat limited lighting if we wanted to stick to my plan of not making us all boiling, which at a certain point you can handle, but if your actors are sweating and it wouldn't really be that hot from a couple lanterns and two people in a bomb shelter, then it starts to screw up your scene and your makeup and everything, which Mike also did all the makeup effects too, and the costuming. We bought separate sets of clothing for the dream sequences and the pre-stuff, and then bought all a size larger, I think, for the post-apocalyptic stuff, so that it looked like they were getting more emaciated and wasting away. But he did all the makeup, as well as practical effects, as well as directing, as well as writing, as well as doing all the rough cutting. He's quite the auteur. He has very strong ideas, and he wants to bring them to life as well as he can, basically.
Yeah, absolutely, and you can see those ideas come to life in this film. You know, a lot of what you guys do is very intentional, and there's a lot of instances of, you know, they always say show don't tell, and a lot of information in this film is conveyed that way. You know, basically, you know, this mom and her son, they're in this bomb shelter and they're running out of food. You know, that's kind of where we're at, this crossroads. You know, the mother goes out to try to find some, to no avail, and, you know, she's at this point where, you know, she's considering attempting to poison her son and, you know, put him out of his misery. So, you know, there's some, you know, heavy subjects dealt with in this, and, you know, it can be challenging sometimes as a filmmaker, you know, when you have two people in a small room and one of them is planning on poisoning the other. You can't talk about that. You got to show that. And I think you guys did a really nice job with the shot selections and, you know, the set design and the props, and just kind of showing all these things unfold and showing kind of her inner strife. And
also it was like one of the most adorable kids ever. so like, oh, she's going to kill him. Oh.
Yeah, he was actually the star of Fast Zombie Sucks son, who was cast in that because he is really just that big zombie nerd. Like, he owns parts of the Monroeville Mall. Like, his entire basement is like a shrine to the Night of the Living Dead trilogy. And And so he really was that. But we did scout around for locations. We did actually spent that much more extra time to try to make it as Hollywood as possible with very little crew and resources. We made the thing on $10,000. Wow. I did a music video that was almost that much then.
Yeah, that's impressive. $10,000 probably sounds like a lot to the average listener, but to make a film for that is very impressive, especially a feature-length film.
Yeah, basically just fed us all and little. That
is one of the biggest expenses for indie film is feeding the crew, because you got to feed your crew, even if you can't pay them and they're generous enough to volunteer their time, which a lot of people are, especially around here. We have a lot of really great collaborators who are willing to volunteer their time for projects they believe in, but you always gotta feed people. That's rule number one. A hungry crew is not going to be a very effective crew.
Very much.
But yeah, you guys, there aren't a lot of actors in this. It's a small cast, but you found some very good actors. Did they have what's their background? What was that auditioning process like? Because did they have a background in horror, or how did you find them?
The kid was just a kid, and some days on set he was a little asshole. Like, he'd be pretending he was really tired or was really amped. Like, he would go around like punching us in the crotch. Like, sometimes he would came up with insulting nicknames for us at points. But like, quite honestly, that is one thing that worked out really well. Like, he's pretty adorable kid. Because the movie doesn't work if he's one of those kids in a movie that you just want to strangle.
You want to see him poison.
It's like, you watch Jingle All the Way and you're like, oh, why is Arnold Schwarzenegger going through all that work for that kid?
Right. Like, we did get really well with that. Hope, actually, who won so many awards that she got for this, that was her first screen acting time. Like, she had done musical theater, she'd done kind of like Disney on Ice stuff, but she had never really acted in a movie before. And then the only Damien Maffei, the dad, who's only seen in the flashback scenes, he is a somewhat famous B movie actor. What's he been in? He's been in the Strangers Prey at Night, the sequel, but I think he's the killer in a sack, so you never see his face. And he's been in a few other indies I'd seen locally. There was actually another Christmas zombie movie that I had seen with him before that, but his part was minimal. And since he had more of a rigorous schedule, we had to shoot all his scenes in one weekend.
Oh wow,
that was a rough weekend too.
Yeah, right. He did a nice job. The whole cast really kind of rose to the occasion, I feel. And
and then Santa is the only, I believe it's just the four of them. There's no, unless I am forgetting something big. I believe that's the whole cast.
There's the woman they come across.
I'm forgetting the singer from my band.
But that was the woman in the building that she took the backpack from.
Yeah, which actually she came down to read. She's a phenomenal actress as well as an amazing singer, but she came down to read for the mom, and she looked super young, and he thought she looked super young, but that was supposed to be a guy in there, and he liked her so much he changed the character to a woman so that she could be in the movie. And I think she did an amazing job with that, and the nightmare scene with the photography studio just really pushes that both her acting and that horrible guilt that she gets from not only, essentially robbing her and leaving her to die, but then having nothing of use in there. And I really like the thing we did too, where, you don't show a gun in the first act if you don't use it in the third act.
Yep.
And then it's the wrong bullets.
Yeah.
And then she tries to cut her wrists with a broken can lid and just can't do it.
Yeah.
Just brutal stuff. Brutal stuff for those who haven't or have seen it.
No, I really like that photography scene at the end. There's something just really unsettling about it, which I think really is a nice little kind of climax for the film. And I don't know. It's just, it kind of, turns into something, very unexpected. And, so we did give the spoiler warning at the beginning. I guess now is probably a good time to talk about the ending a little bit. So, this mom, she kind of attempts to poison her child with these Christmas cookies. And then we later find out that, he never even ate the cookies. He left them for Santa. So it ends with Santa Claus coming down into the bunker with this kid. And then it gets pretty weird. You want to talk about the ending a little bit, Dylan, and, maybe kind of touch on the thought process behind that? Because I'm sure that kind of comes up a lot.
Absolutely. So yeah, with the ending, basically there's a build up to it from the beginning. I think it was something the director had done as a kid where they would take their letters to Santa and burn them so they would go and reach him at the North Pole. So the idea is basically then in, I think, the very next scene, you see then sort of Santa in this gas mask gazing out over this just bleak ground zero area, and he's got a scroll with just one name left. So the idea is playing off of, that Santa is made real by the imagination of kids.
Yeah.
And this is the last kid, and he doesn't want to be in this world anymore either. So he comes down there and well, there are some non-practical effects in there too, though one that I particularly liked after first he pulls the mask off and you see his face looks like this kind of porcelain alabaster thing.
What was the idea behind that? That looks really cool.
Yeah, it's the idea was sort of that the imagination of him is fading away, and he's just sort of almost calcifying and cracking, and he's just this this wasted away Santa Claus. And when he comes down there, it's interesting because their body types were way different, but the idea that we wanted to play was still, for a moment, she thinks, is this her husband coming back somehow, and probably because you only ever see him in these dream sequences. And
which
I think she even says it like tentatively, and then he pulls the mask off, and it's actually desiccated Santa.
Yeah.
And she starts to freak out, and she tells him to get away, and he doesn't. He looks up in sort of this weird mix of anticipation and maybe a little bewilderment, and then Santa just starts killing the kid, choking the life out of him, and she runs over and screams no. And that actually was another practical effect that was like, she runs over, tries to grab the kid away from him like any mom would do, and he just throws her away, and she hits her head on the wall. And what we did to get that effect, she actually has really short hair, so we had these different styled wigs for her, so we took the wig and put it on the foam wig thing and just smashed it in the wall to really get the feel like she really hits her head, because then it goes into the in and out of focus coming to camera,
and you can see the kids
legs already at this point basically either suffocated or his neck's broken. And then Santa sort of finally feels his release from this world. And another thing that isn't a CG effect down there that I really liked, I think we used like a vape pen and a little scorpion light, one of these with a green gel on it to get that exhale of green smoke out of his mouth. Okay. That's actually a real effect.
So Santa is then released after the last child on Earth has died. There's something very devastating about that. Santa just wants out.
And he falls and his head shatters.
He shatters like a terracotta pot. He just like crumbles, and there's these green lights, and Santa is free.
Also a practical effect with the whole head mold when the head shatters too.
So how was that? Did you guys build like a model head and then just break it?
It is a life cast, yeah.
Okay.
And instead of making it out of silicone like you would with like a normal thing, since the idea is that Santa's kind of desiccating away, we did basically make that out of clay and then paint it to be similar to kind of the face, but a little bit whiter, as though as all of that drains out. And I think we put little bits of plaster in his clothes when you see him walking, and there's little crumbles coming out. Like a lot of that stuff is the CG effects are where the pieces fade away. Like that was the where he kind of disappears into little green puffs. But like that's sort of Mike's theory, and basically the one that I have too on all of that. While I'm not nearly the effects artist that he is, I think it's best to do as much practical effects as possible, or compositing practical effects together rather than relying on CG stuff until it gets to the point where it is just either unsafe or just completely cost prohibitive to try to do it that way.
Yeah. So you talked
looks
before. Yeah, absolutely. And you talked about earlier how Mike wears a lot of hats, and, kind of one thing he's very passionate, very good about, and very good at is these practical kind of gore effects. And I know he did a lot of those for this film, and you've worked with him before, I believe, in other shorts and in music videos even, where he's done gore effects. Is that correct?
Yes, he did. He did do some sort of gore effects. It was more black slime effects that we did on this one music video. And yeah, he's done some gore effects on other things. And honestly, some of the other movies we did had more straight out gore effect. This one, another interesting thing too, is his writing and his dialogue changed. I don't think there's like a single swear word in this movie, whereas the original real splatter stuff, like he would try to write it realistically, but then some of the lines like almost had so much profanity in it. It just read as forced and not realistic. But yeah, I think I do think I don't know.
So yeah, that's kind of, if a lot of the practical gore effects you'll see in this film were done by Mike, and he's, I don't know, he definitely, he seems like someone, I've met him a couple times. He seems like someone who has a very specific idea of what he wants and, how he wants to convey that. So I guess, to provide a little context, John and I have worked together in the capacity where he's the director and I'm the DP, the director of photography. And, as a DP, how do you feel like you achieve a balance between what a director wants and what you think is best? Because it's not always the same thing. Like, you want to please the director and make their vision come to life, but there's definitely kind of a compromise aspect to the relationship, right?
Absolutely. I think by this point we were both a little more on the same page about what we could accomplish with what we had.
And it helps that you guys had worked together before and you already have a relationship. Yeah.
Because when we first started working together, like I said, I came in as an editor, and he used to also shoot everything himself too on an old crappy VHS-C or maybe mini DV camera, but not even like a pro one, like like just a little handy cam type thing.
That's one thing that I've found is incredibly difficult for me personally, is directing and being the DP at the same time, because I've found that they use such different parts of my brain that one or the other will suffer if I'm not 100% in one of those aspects. So yeah, I mean, it's very important for, a DP and a director to have, a relationship where they're, really in sync.
Absolutely. And I think coming in and sort of being able to bring in higher end lighting and being able to just be the one focusing on the shots and I we really worked together from the beginning to get the shots and the feeling, because at first he didn't necessarily know what shots would get his feeling across that well, or even he would sort of shoot his things at first in that very much, okay, this is the shot, this is the next shot, this is the next shot of things, and he didn't shoot things with coverage in mind, he didn't shoot things with scenes in mind, like he sort of, but by this point we had more of a rapport on that, I think, which was good, because we, unlike a lot of the shorts we did not have that much time for pre-production on certain things. We just kind of had to figure out what we were doing, especially with a lot of the exterior stuff. Like with the bomb shelter, at least it was a set location, while we didn't get the opportunity to just leave all our stuff down there set up. But we still at least knew what we were working with down there. But yeah, I do think that is just sort of the thing that happens as you're a director, which I've done too, but not in quite the capacity or amounts that I am a DP. And I do think I'm a DP foremost, while I can direct. But I think as you learn, you grow, and you work on more projects, you start to be able to see things that way. Well, then it still comes down to the DP to execute it, both in the lighting and the cinematography.
So how much of this did you guys have this storyboarded out, or was it more of a general shot list? How much of these, for example, these longer kind of tracking shots you have, how many of those were planned, and how much of it was you guys got there and you're like, well, we had this in mind, but this might work better?
We basically had a general shot list. We didn't have time or really resources to fully storyboard it. And I just, honestly, I prefer writing out shot lists because I can write exactly what I want the shot to do in a sentence or two.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, I mean, I used to love drawing and painting, but like the time it takes me to storyboard it out, it's just not worth it. And when I can describe what the shot will be in a
that's one
sentence or
thing.
two.
Storyboards are something that indie films, especially one with the $10,000 budget, oftentimes do not have the luxury of having them. They don't have the luxury of having storyboards. Because it's a storyboard. Basically, you're making rough sketches, sometimes not even rough sketches. These bigger films, the storyboards look amazing, and you have like every shot of the film down on a single cell, or
it's like an animatic or something where they have
almost like a comic.
They'll even some films will even piece them together and make little like animations out of them to show the movement and stuff. But then that also, not needing those also comes back to having a good rapport with the director. If you can put down a shot list on paper and, get on the same page, and he trusts your vision and he knows you're going to get the shot that he wants, that's great. And that's one thing that, in an indie film that has a low budget, you can kind of cut out. And that's, it's definitely more of a luxury, but it's not always 100% necessary. Any up and coming filmmakers out there, there are a lot of good apps and different resources that you can use to kind of come up with these shot lists, and
especially even more than storyboards, what you're saying there, where the ones that'll let you kind of do the plotting, that probably would have been what would have helped more on this, because for the first half of the movie we didn't really have any sort of grip or gaffing team.
Oh, wow.
Like there are literally some scenes where the kid's mom was holding the key light, like for real. Like, so those kind of apps that let you plot that stuff out are really cool, and I do think that might have actually been the thing that could have stepped that up. But at the same time, one thing we did have was time, and Mike putting so much time into pre-production, into finding the right things and dressing the set and finding the right locations. I mean, all those exteriors, all that stuff is all shot around Lancaster County too.
The sets and locations were great. I know the initial scene where we see this post-apocalyptic world, that's the White Cliffs of Kenoi, correct?
Yes.
So that's this really interesting place, kind of, I guess it's maybe 30 minutes from Lancaster, 40. And it's, what is it exactly? It's like ash or something? It's kind of this whitish, grayish kind of desert looking area that looks like it could double as like the surface of the moon almost. It's very interesting. I've shot there before myself.
Yeah, I actually did some promo photos for my friend's band Veilburner down there as well, I think later on. But basically, I feel like we do have just about every single type of terrain and thing you could want around here except for desert. Actually, what we were going for too with that scene where she wakes up from that, or where the dream turns not so dreamy and goes into a sort of nightmare thing, which then gets echoed towards the end with the photography studio scene.
Yeah.
She when she walks out of the house, we were going for the ending of one of both Mike and my favorite movies, The Beyond by Lucio Fulci.
Okay.
Old 70s horror movie.
We actually talked about that on the podcast. I recommended it to Jason.
Oh, great. Awesome movie. A little more all over the place, I think, because the producers insisted that he cram zombies in at the end because of the success of Zombie or Zombie 2, which has the zombie shark fight. Another classic, amazing bit of both practical effects and horror legend. But we were really going for that end scene where they go down into the basement and they come down the basement stairs, and then they see they're in the painting, and then they turn around and it's behind them too. And then they turn around and everything's gone and their eyes are white. And that's, we open with that, but we were absolutely paying homage to Fulci there.
That's so good.
Little behind the scenes bit.
John is just giddy.
It makes so much sense now. I was like, aha.
All right, so we talked a little bit about the influences. So I know this film won quite a few awards, especially in the horror film fest circuit. So can you talk a little bit about that? What was that like? I know you hit the road a couple times. You traveled to some pretty cool film fests, and what was that like?
Yeah, it was awesome, and in some ways it was really cool because the guy who played Santa's wife actually I think worked for Marriott or some hotel chain, so we were able to get dirt cheap lodging.
Oh, wow. That's
But
awesome.
Nice.
Up until then, all the shorts I'd done, Mike kind of crushes the festival circuit. We did so well, I think, because he had already built up 10, 15 years of festival connections in the horror, specifically in the horror festivals. But I never made it any of the festivals for the shorts we did, and I really wanted to, but I was busy or I was broke. It's when you're a DP, you don't always get to be the one who goes and does that fun stuff. It's usually the director or the producer who's out there. But for this one, we worked so hard on it. I was really proud of it. I was like, look, I am making it to as much of this festival circuit as I can, and I got to meet so many awesome filmmakers, and we won a ton of awards. I remember the premiere, we got to go to Nightmares Film Fest, which they call the Cans of Horror, out in Ohio, and it was this big thing, and it was like actually played alongside, I think, the Leatherface movie, which sucked, but it, big movie, and but honestly, yeah, we played alongside other indies that I think were better, far better than that, like Bong of the Living Dead, also on Scream Team Releasing. Kind of cool, like also being a musician, it's almost like we have like label mates now.
Yeah,
yeah, like
awesome.
a lot of the favorites from the festival circuit then wound up on that label with us too.
Yeah,
which is super cool. But that one, honestly, thought was gonna just be a kind of dumb stoner comedy, and it's up there with Shaun of the Dead for me.
Wow.
Yeah, like you think it's gonna be something that it isn't, but yeah, another one I highly recommend on there. I met all of those guys.
So you got to like chill with those guys, and now it's
well, they shot that out in the town that the festival was, so like everyone was there for that. Obviously, those guys had so many more people out there, being from not just Ohio, but from that from Columbus, from the same city. So. But it was pretty cool and impressive that we had that many people out there, and they had the coolest awards. They're like these sculpted nightmares that looked like the old Magic card, which I used to love and still love on and off. I constantly, every time I'm sort of thinking about going back into it, like a lot of these guys and some of the metal bands that I've filmed. In fact, this one band, Infury, that both Jason and I did a music video for live. Can't see me, but I'm wearing their shirt. But they just did this little like super like Lovecraft based like Summoning Cthulhu album, but two of the songs are actually based on the Eldrazi cards from Magic, Eldritch Evolution and Eon's Torn, like are both specifically Magic cards that are very Lovecraftian, like Elder God type things. But yeah, this trophy was so cool, and I forget what we were up for that, but Hope won Best Actress at our premiere, and it was just like,
yeah.
I think I was more nervous for that than the one time I was up for the cinematography
nomination.
And we were just hugging her, and you can actually see in some of the video, like I have my cell phone out filming, hugging her, like it just was such a great thing. And then to get to go there, and honestly, what might have been cooler, we went to Crimson Screen Film Festival down in South Carolina, and I swear, like that, the movie, that one was cool because we won, well, I didn't get the cinematography one, we won Best Actress and Best Picture, and then our other friends, this short film Lunch Ladies, and I think you can just watch it online, but amazing horror comedy short, but they won the same things in the short film category. So like afterwards,
nice.
They're like sitting there like, oh, like our friends won that, and that was interesting too. They had the effects artist out for that, whereas at Nightmares we had met the producer and director, but super cool dude, runs he's the head of Soka Effects, does I think they work for like most or all the Blumhouse movies. I've made just a lot of industry friends throughout that, and also thus seen just the importance of the festival circuit and that end of things. Like,
absolutely,
once you've made the movie, then you gotta be prepared for circuits and for the distribution and all of that. It doesn't stop at editing.
Right.
Even once it's done, it's not done.
Yeah. And speaking of editing, we talked about the collaboration between DP and a director earlier. And as an editor myself, this is one thing I wanted to touch on. If you intend to be a director, learn how to edit, at least have an understanding of it, because it is invaluable to directing. And, it can help you with shot selection and how to tell a story visually and, help you figure out what works and what doesn't. So I just wanted to add that into the collaboration aspect we touched on earlier. But going back to the festivals, any young filmmaker out there, if you haven't experienced the festival circuit, do it. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to shoot for the stars right away. Even there are so many awesome local film festivals. There's a couple here in Lancaster as well. And, just the being able to just kind of sit back, relax and watch something that you worked so hard on with an audience of people who, are there for you. It's a really great experience, sharing the shock and the laughs and everything with a large audience is just incredible. And, it feels great to be recognized for your hard work. And, like Dylan said, you meet a lot of great collaborators along the way. And it's I haven't experienced it to the extent that you have. I've had a short film that was in a couple local festivals, and just even that it's such an invaluable experience, and, definitely recommended. I wouldn't let the fact that it's some no-name festival in some no-name town deter you, because you never know who you can meet there. You never know what kind of response you'll get. You never know what that'll lead to. And, definitely just go out and do it.
Also, to expand on what Jason was saying about editing, I think while it's very important to master whichever particular craft in filmmaking you want to, you should understand what every other department and job does. You should understand editing. You should understand directing. You should understand sound. You should understand the grip department. If you don't understand the rest of that, your cogs aren't going to work together right.
And a good way to experience that, for any young filmmakers out there, be a PA, a production assistant, because it's a pretty thankless job, but the education you get is pretty invaluable because you're kind of involved in a little bit of everything. You don't have say in anything, but you're involved in a little bit of everything. So it really helps you kind of get a complete picture of the process. And then from there, you can kind of focus on what you want to do.
I agree.
I will say that when Jason is a director and I'm a PA, he does let the power dynamic get to his head and makes me run around and grab things for him.
Yeah, I was going to say you will get things and you will also get coffee for the director. But you can learn a lot being a PA. I actually worked on this big movie last December called Locked In that I'm not sure where they're releasing it. It might be like a TV thing or it might actually go out in theaters. But I wound up, I told him I could either be first AC or boom op, and I wound up being boom op, which I've done some other sound gigs like Calf Rope that we both wound up doing sound on after we had done all the cinematography on the first part of that. But it was a big project. I got to work with Jeff Fahey and Mina Savari and big name actors. Like it was really cool. It was also all shot entirely in a storage facility pretty much. So it was pretty rough on the feet because it was 12-hour days, 6-day weeks.
Yeah.
But super cool to kind of step out of the camera department and really see the rest of it. And also, since they were shooting on an Alexa, and I was, I basically was like, I want to be the one who runs the audio tentacle, and I just want to be near the camera every time. But yeah, definitely, it's worth all joking aside, it's worth it to go and PA on stuff if you're just starting out. It's definitely worth it to try to get that overarching experience of the way a whole production works.
So yeah. So we talked about Locked In a little bit. Do you have any other projects in the works you want to discuss?
Well, yeah, there's these two films I did last year that are finished. There's Dirt and I'm Turning 16. One's more of just like a kind of a family drama. The other one's more of kind of like a real dirty crime drama type thing. But both of those have been killing it in the Digital Festival Awards, I think. And then also Calf Rope. I think Dirt and Calf Rope both wound up at this festival out in California, and both like did phenomenally there.
Awesome.
But then there's another horror movie I'd worked on with this guy who had, interestingly enough, previously done only kind of, Sharknado style stuff. Like he'd done this movie House Shark that also premiered at Nightmares. And I guess last fall I saw him just make a Facebook post looking for a DP and called him up and wound up just going up and doing that for him. So, another valuable reason to go to film festivals. You could actually get work out of it. Yeah. Like paid work sometimes even. But so I went up there and I shot that with him, and that's still in production. I don't know how much they need to do to finish up the effects. It's one of those ones where it's kind of like a 10-minute short, but he went from, these kind of, real horror comedies where a lot of the comedy is based on the cheesiness of it to going for this serious Lovecraftian short that is kind of the idea to build up to a longer feature. But I don't know where that is in production. I'm excited to see how it turned out. I'm real proud of my cinematography on that.
Awesome.
And I worked on a lot of movies last year. I think I did 11 or 12 different short projects and locked in as a feature. I think that might have been the only feature I worked on that year. It's I had done a lot of music videos after White Doomsday. I definitely needed some time to sort of gear up towards doing one that way. I do see, especially that's the thing too, working on Locked In, which, had $1 million budget, but still that's not that big of a budget.
Yeah, that's still
like,
small to
that's
put
still
things
small
in
budget.
perspective. Yeah.
Like it really shows you though why Marvel movies have that many people in the credits. It really shows you. But that still wasn't even like a full crew. Well, it was far more staffed than every indie I've been on. When you see it in action, it helps you, it really helps you understand why they run things that way instead of doing the kind of one-man show run and gun it thing, which can be invaluable to know. I mean, I think having done more last-minute gigs and documentary stuff, like I'm pretty good at like improv filming and coming up with good stuff quick, but that is not the optimal way to do anything. I really think the best theory is you make a plan and then you use those skills to improv on top of that to make it better. Like that. That's the theory I try to go with on.
And I think that's where a lot of, local indies kind of lack. They go into it expecting to just have to improvise anything. But like you said, you have to go into it with a plan and then, prepare to improvise on top of that. Because if you just try to wing it all, that's going to show in the final project 100%.
Mm-hmm.
So, we talked a little bit about Real Splatter Productions, Scream Team releasing. Is there anything else or anyone else you wanted to shout out? Maybe even talk about how our listeners could check out some of your work or some of your music videos or something like that.
Well, yeah, I guess music video wise, I just did a music video for one of my favorite bands. Actually, well, yeah, they were like tied for second or third of my favorite bands last year. This band Equipoise. I had mentioned Inferi before, who Jason and I actually shot a live video for a couple of years ago. I actually did a video for them that just came out on Halloween this year that I shot last Halloween. They have this whole like kind of internet running gag about hot dogs. They all dress in hot dog costumes, but like you can watch that video. I'm actually still really proud of the cinematography because it was a packed show. I almost wasn't going to shoot because they're wearing these outfits. I was like, I'll shoot it anyway. And like, ironically, it's the song that got me into the band that we did. It was the song they opened with. And I was like, this is really good. And they ended up loving it. And well, it was a small venue and the drums were right up against the wall. So I actually took a drum shot from, I think, the very show we shot at the Fire in Philadelphia where they had that long hallway thing.
Yeah.
And I punched that in for the bass drum shot because for extreme technical death metal, you got to have those kick drum shots. It's just, you got to see what they're doing with their feet at points. It's very, I don't know. I try to tell a story with like the instruments when I'm doing a music video that's just performance, you know, for narrative.
Yeah.
It's a bit different thing than you're blending a short film with music or music and performance, depending on how to do that. But yeah, I mean, you can, I should have a website by now, but you can check out my Facebook page, DSC Productions, which has all of that stuff. Or, you know, a lot of those things are just on the band's YouTube because, you know, you don't want to be pulling from those views, you know.
Awesome. Yeah. So DSC Productions on Facebook. And I will say, I listen to a lot of whiny indie music, and working with Dylan on these metal videos has given me a new appreciation of metal music for sure. I mean, just the technical aspect of it is just, you know, insane. And, you know, how you've been able to convey that in the performance videos is pretty awesome. So, yeah. So, I guess the last thing we're going to do to wrap up this interview here is, you know, why don't you just talk a little bit about some of your favorite horror films? John and I we started this podcast, the first episode, kind of talking about some of ours. So if, you know, real quick, you want to rattle off some favorites, we'd love to hear it.
Well, yeah, we already touched on the Fulci stuff with the whole big homage from that. And that, you gotta give all the love to the creature features like The Thing, and much more recently, The Void. And another big one that both me and Mike love is Aliens, which may have I think they had 18 puppeteers in the Alien Queen. Like, it was something insane. Like, that is just still a movie that I love to this day. While I don't think the franchise continued after that, unfortunately. But hey, you know, we won't talk about that. But then another more recent one I actually really loved was Annihilation. All those like practical shimmer effects, and those were some really good practical effects too. Another one too, not technically horror, maybe more thriller, but I like thrillers that have real horror gore. And one of my favorite directors, actually, I don't know, it wasn't the premiere, but I think Jason and his wife and I saw this one, Green Room.
Yeah,
brutal movie, like gut-wrenching gore in it, but it's more a thriller than a horror.
Yeah,
but.
Yeah, Dylan and I are big Jeremy Saulnier fanboys for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Jeremy Saulnier.
That arm part.
Oh, yeah, that's the one. His machete is up his arm, or when he gets his throat ripped out by the dogs. Like, some of those points in that were great. I'd say that. There's so many movies, but, you know, I wanted to touch on, you know, how Real Splattered kind of started as a horror comedy thing, and then we sort of, you know, Mike was like sort of waffling a little. I was like, no, dude, let's do it. We can do this. I think we can pull this off and make it serious. And well, the overwhelming response has been that we did, which is awesome. It feels nice to accomplish one's goals. But like, to go into the horror Slither, which I think is a great pairing of both actual horror that's scary and gross, and comedy, and one of the best someone getting split in half scenes in any movie. But yeah, Slither, and then Cabin in the Woods, that's one of my favorite movies ever. And honestly, like, I'm more of in some ways I'm more of a sci-fi guy. I feel like, you know, horror and horror comedy are really up there, but my favorite genre is science fiction. I really like that.
That's interesting, because the first episode where John and I discussed our favorite horror films, I mentioned really being drawn to horror films that have an element of sci-fi, and especially kind of realistic sci-fi. Like, if this were to happen in today's world, it would kind of play out like this. I tend to gravitate towards that. And I think, you know, having the right balance of horror and sci-fi can be really effective.
Yeah. Annihilation, once again.
Yeah.
And The Void and The Thing. And well, I mean, I would say Alien. Oh, Event Horizon. There's another one.
Oh, yeah. I remember seeing that back in the old, like, VHS days where you rented movies.
And Pandorum, and what's the other one? Sunshine. There's not a lot of those, like, space. Oh my God. I just thought of Love, Death, and Robots, which I think is the superior to Black Mirror and superior to even Philip K. Dick's Electric Dreams show. It's like all but one sketch animated, but really, really great sci-fi that goes from comedy to just weird to drama to some just real great sci-fi horror.
That sounds
is
awesome.
on-
Where
and
I've never heard of that. Where can we watch
Oh.
that?
That's on Netflix. Yeah, Love, Death, and Robots. I swear. Like I do love Black Mirror and Philip K. Dick's Electric Dream. I really loved as well. The kind of the Amazon retort to to Black Mirror. My favorite Black Mirror is still USS Callister. Like I swear that.
Oh, that was so good.
All right. Well, Dylan, we can't thank you enough for joining us today. This is the first ever interview and Let's Take a Stab at It podcast history. So I had a lot of fun. We really appreciate having you on and, giving us your time. And the film is I'm Dreaming of a White Doomsday, available on Amazon Prime. And also the Blu-rays are available from Scream Team Releasing. And that has some cool behind the scenes footage and, documentary to go along with it. So yeah, check it out. And Dylan, thanks again for joining us. And
Yeah, thanks, Dylan.
yeah,
thank
it was
you.
a lot
It
of
was
fun.
a pleasure to be here.
All right, that does it for our Christmas episode. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe. And coming in the new year, we will be starting our new mini-series, which will be slasher films.
Oh yeah, looking forward to it.
So until then, stab you later.
Merry Christmas.
And happy Hanukkah.
Hello? Hello? John? Jason? I made my family disappear. I made my family disappear.